So which weapons should you use on your Durin? In this video I'll be ranking all of the swords in the game in a tier list based around which of them are going to allow your Durin to deal the most damage. I'm going to tell you what he needs on a weapon and why, and then finally I'm going to rank the weapons. Before we continue that though, if you're trying to get Durin or any of his weapons, I would recommend getting your Genesis crystals from LDshop.gg. LDshop is a cheap, fast, and safe game top-up website that offers top-ups for many games, including Genshin Impact. As you guys can see here, these are the offers they have for Genshin, and all of them are cheaper than the official game store, starting off from 15% cheaper and even more. For example, we can see that 3,280 Genesis crystals offer. It costs $50 in the official game store, but here it only costs $39.10. That's 10.89 or more than 21% saved by using LDshop. They also have many other things like bundles, character outfits, Welkins, and stuff like that. But yeah, when you want to buy, just click on the offer you'd like to choose. For example, I'm going to buy the 300 crystals offer. You only need to enter your server region and user ID. Obviously, make sure they're right and then click on top up. And then you just choose your payment method and then enter your details and then just pay. Shortly after that, you'll just receive the crystals in your account. And right now, if you use my link, you'll get a 15% off coupon and also an extra 5% off. That can save you up to $50. They also have more cool things on the website. For example, if you spend more than $80, that can allow you to win a free Welkin. You can go and check it out yourself. Click the link in the description or the pinned comment and top up now. Alright, so back to the video. First of all, let's explain what does Durin need on a weapon, so we understand based around what we're going to be ranking the swords in the game. So Durin is basically just going to be a sub DPS mainly. You can play him as other roles of main DPS or whatever, but he's mainly just going to be a sub DPS slash buffer. His buffing abilities in general are not really going to scale with anything, so you don't need to build or get any stats for it to work. But his damage is just going to scale off as normal sub DPS or main DPS damage. He's just going to be needing the basic stuff like crit damage and crit rate, attack, whether it's high base attack percentage and stuff like that. He does scale pretty well with attack. All of his damage is just going to be scaling with attack, and also he gets buffs based on his attack. So you definitely want to get enough attack. Those are going to be the main things, but you can also get some energy recharge. That's going to be pretty good. His burst uptime is going to be a little iffy. So if you can get some energy recharge, that's definitely going to be pretty helpful. Elemental mastery is going to be pretty good too. Damage bonus is going to be pretty good too, whether it's pyro damage bonus, elemental burst damage bonus, because that's going to be like his main source of damage. Or any overall type of like damage bonus is going to be pretty good. Obviously, it's just going to buff his damage. And then finally, elemental mastery is going to be a little decent too. It's definitely not the main thing you'd want to go for on your weapon. Probably some substats are just going to be enough, but if you want to have some elemental mastery on your weapon, it can be pretty good. It's just going to buff your reactions, and that's always good for vaporize and stuff like that, so it's not going to be bad if you have some of it on your weapon. But yeah, knowing that, let's move on to the tier list and rank all of the swords for Durin. Alright, so starting off with the 3-star options, usually they're not going to be the best, but just because of the base attack. As I said before, he's just going to be like a normal sub DPS, so the low base attack is not going to be the best thing for him. But in general, there are some 3-star options that can be pretty decent. Cool Steel is going to give you some attack. I'll probably just put it as C tier, honestly. It's not useless, but it's not the thing you'd want to go for. Harbinger of Dawn is going to be giving you crit damage and then also some crit rate, which is pretty decent. It's probably the best 3-star option in my opinion. I put it low B tier. It's still like not the best option for him, but it's probably the best like free to play option you can go for, at least in like early game. If you're forced to use a 3-star weapon or you don't have many weapons, then it can definitely work for Durin, but it's not the best option. I put it low B tier. Say it's usable. Traveler's Handy Sword is just defense, so it's going D tier. Dark Iron Sword is some elemental mastery, and then it's going to give you some attack too. Pretty decent, but it's not the best. I put it as C tier too. Fillet Blade is just attack. I probably put it like low C tier. Skyrider Sword, it's just energy recharge. I probably put it low C tier too. Not really the weapon you want to go for. Now, moving on to the 4-star options, we have the Favonius Sword. I wouldn't really say it's the weapon you want to use on Durin. You can use it and make him like a support and also help him out with energy, help out your team with energy. But in general, it's definitely not the weapon that's made for him. It's just going to be giving you energy and energy particles for your team, which is not really Durin's role. So I put it at a high C tier. I don't think it's a weapon you'd want to use. The Flute, it's just going to be attack. Passive is basically completely useless, so I'd probably throw it at a high C tier too, honestly. It's just a small attack stat stick, so yeah. Sacrificial Sword, that's basically the same thing as the Favonius. Even the skill cooldown is not really going to matter as much for Durin, so yeah, just put it next to the Favonius at C tier. Royal Great Sword, it's also the same thing, it's just attack. The passive is also almost useless, not fully, but it's definitely not the best thing. I put it like low B tier too. Lion's Roar basically the same thing, but the passive is a little better. It's going to increase your damage against opponents that are affected by Pyro or Electro, which is going to be usable sometimes. It can increase your damage in some scenarios. But yeah, put a B tier. Broadside Praying Core, it's just physical damage, basically almost useless. I put it like very low C tier, honestly, just for the kind of high base attack, but other than that, it's not the best thing. Iron Sting is going to be Elemental Mastery, and then it's just going to give you damage bonus. I think it's pretty decent, honestly. It's just the damage bonus is going to be pretty good, especially with the refinements. It can be a pretty decent weapon, even though it's not the best stats, but it has a pretty decent combination. So I'll put it at B tier too. It's not terrible. Blackcliff Longsword is going to be crit damage, also pretty high base stack for a 4-star, which is pretty good. And then after you defeat an opponent, it's going to give you attack up to 3 stacks, which is going to be super good. Obviously, it's very situational, so against like big enemies, you cannot get the attack buff, but in general, it can be a pretty good weapon. I would put it at low A tier, honestly. I think it's pretty good. If you're not getting any stacks, then it's probably going to be like B tier, but in general, I'll just keep it low A tier. I think it's a fair place for this weapon. The Black Sword is going to be a little worse in my opinion, just because the passive is not really going to help Durin almost at all, but it's still going to give you crit rate, so that's always appreciated. I'll probably also keep it at very low A tier. The Alley Flash is super high base stack for a 4-star, small elemental mastery substat, which I like, honestly. It's probably everything you need, and then it's also going to increase your damage from the passive, so in my opinion, it's going to be pretty good. I'll probably put it at just better than the Iron Sting, so yeah, just keep it at B tier. PlayStation Sword, it's like C tier. Faster and Desire is probably not going to be the best thing you could use. It's basically just energy recharge. The skill is going to be completely useless, or not completely, but like mainly. Your elemental skills damage is not going to be that huge, so I'll probably keep it a very low C tier. I mean, the Makagachi low base attack and then attack as a substat. It's going to give you some energy too. I guess it's like an average weapon. I put it B tier too. Cinnabar Spindle is just defense. The passive is also completely useless, so I put it D tier, honestly. Gagaturba Ishin, just basically an attack stat stick. Passive is like fully useless. I put it like just B tier. I can also give you some attack from the passive, but it's not much. It's like low B tier. Sapwood Blade is just energy recharge and then some elemental mastery. Probably keep it like C tier. It's definitely not the weapon you want to go for. Sipho's Moonlight, some elemental mastery, and then maybe some energy recharge. Also not the best thing, honestly. I'll just keep it C tier. Prized Ishin Blade is just attack. The passive is like almost fully useless, so I'll probably put it at a high C tier. I don't think it's gonna be here at B tier. Tokabu Shigure, it's just elemental mastery, and then the passive can be activated and give you damage bonus, but it's gonna be very inconsistent, so I'll keep it C tier too. C tier is gonna be very filled here. Wolf Fang crit rate, which is going to be pretty good. Elemental skill and burst damage is going to be increased, which is pretty good. That's elemental burst damage is going to be Durin's main source of damage. And then it's also going to give some crit rate to both your elemental skill and burst, which is also going to be super good. Honestly, I think it's probably one of the best 4-star options for him, so I'll probably keep it at A tier. I think it deserves A tier. Just that crit rate, it has a good mix of like crit rate, damage bonus, and it's a 4-star, so I do think it deserves A tier. Now leave the deep high base stack and then also an attack substat. It's going to give you a bond of life, but it can also give you some like easy attack increase from the passive. I keep it B tier. It's basically just an attack stat stick. I'd say it's an average weapon. The Sender Ferryman, it's just energy recharge. I keep it C tier. The Dock Hands Assistant is just HP. I probably keep it D tier. Sword of something, it's just attack and it can allow you to deal like the arc things. It's basically just an attack stat stick. The passive is not really useful. I keep it at like high C tier. Sturdy Bone, basically just also an attack stat stick. The passive is completely useless, so I'd also keep it at high C tier. Flute of Espetal, it's just defense, D tier. Calamity of Issue, same thing, just an attack stat stick with a useless passive. That's gonna be at like high C tier. Serenity's Call is gonna be energy recharge and then some HP. Honestly, I'd probably throw it like D tier. It's not really useful at all. Even the base attack is gonna be low for a 4-star. And then the final 4-star, we have the Moonweaver's Dawn. It's gonna give you attack, which is pretty good. High base attack for a 4-star too, which is super good. The passive is also gonna give you an extra 20% elemental burst damage bonus, which is going to be super good. Unfortunately, the second part of the passive is not going to be applicable for Durin because his burst is going to cost 70 energy, but in general, it's still pretty decent. It's just attack and then 20% elemental burst damage bonus, so I keep it a high B tier. I think it's a pretty decent weapon. I don't think it's as good as A tier, but high B tier is fair for this weapon in my opinion. Now, moving on to the 5-star options, and obviously they're going to usually be better on average just because of the super high base stack and the super high like raw stats, which usual main DPSs or sub DPSs like Durin are going to appreciate a lot. So starting off with the Akil of Livonia, super high base stack, physical damage sub stat, which is useless, but it's also going to give you more attack from the passive, which is going to be pretty good. Rest of the passive is whatever, but I keep it B tier honestly, just for the super high base stack. It's not the best weapon at all, but it's going to be better than all of these C tier weapons purely just because of the high base attack. Skyward Blade is going to be less base stack, but still pretty high for a weapon in general. It's going to give you energy recharge, which is not really the best stat you'd want to go for, and a small crit rate increase from the passive. I'd also keep it at B tier honestly. I think that's probably the right place for it. Freedom Sword is going to be Elemental Mastery. It's also going to give you damage bonus, which is pretty good. And then it's going to buff the rest of your team's normal, charged, and plunging attacks by 16%. Also increase their attack, including Durin's attack. Honestly, it's going to fit in pretty well, especially as like a sub DPS. It's going to expand like his support options. So it's a pretty good weapon in my opinion. The Elemental Mastery substat is not the best thing, but in general, it's also going to have high base attack, some attack increase, team buffs, and then damage increase. I'd probably put it like either low S tier or high A tier. I'd keep it a high A tier since it's not fully fit in Durin, but in general it's definitely a pretty decent weapon. So yeah, I'd keep it a high A tier. Summit Shaper is basically just a huge attack stat stick. Probably keep it at A tier too. The Jade Cutter is always going to be good for these sort of characters. It's just going to give you crit rate and then attack, so it's basically everything you need. It's also a big crit rate substat too, which is super good. So honestly, it's an S tier weapon in my opinion. It's not like the best weapon for him, but it's up there. So yeah, definitely put a S tier. I think it deserves it. This Splitter Reforce, super high base stack, and then a small crit damage substat, which is pretty good. And then it can also give you some elemental damage bonus from the passive, which is super good. And then it can also give you extra elemental damage bonus if you can get the stacks. I think Durin can probably get at least 2 stacks. You can normal attack if you want to, and then the energy cap, you're probably just going to use Durin after you burst, so your energy is going to be low. And then when you use your elemental skill, so you can get 3 stacks or 2 minimum, which is going to be pretty good. It's basically just going to be giving you a lot of damage bonus, and then crit damage with a super high base stack, so I do think it deserves S tier too. I definitely do think it's a pretty good weapon for Durin. Harengepiku is just going to be crit rate. It's basically just crit rate and then a small elemental damage bonus. I think it's pretty decent. I'd probably also put it at low S tier. Kiev Hajnesu is just going to be HP, and it can give you some elemental mastery from the passive. It's definitely not the best weapon. I'll probably put it like low B tier just for the high base stack still and the elemental mastery, so it's not fully terrible, but yeah, it's definitely not the best weapon, especially as a 5-star. Light of Foliar Incision, crit damage as a substat, which is going to be pretty good, then a small crit rate increase from the passive. Rest of the passive is not really the best thing, so I'll probably keep it at A tier. I think that's probably the right place. You can just use it as like a crit damage, crit rate, stat stick, and that's it. Splendor of Tranquil Waters, crit damage as a substat, which is pretty good too. Rest of the passive is probably not going to be the best thing to use with Durin, unless you're using them with Fiorina. In that case, just use the weapon on Fiorina herself. So I'd assume it's just a crit damage stat stick. I put it like A tier, probably lowish A tier. So it's definitely not the best weapon, but you can also use it as just a stat stick. Yuraku Misiguri, also basically just a crit damage stat stick. It's just gonna buff your elemental skill damage, normal attacks damage. So it's gonna be the same thing as a Splendor. I'll put it just next to it. Absolution, super high base stack, and then a crit damage substat. More crit damage from the passive. Rest of the passive is kind of whatever. So it's basically just a huge crit damage stat stick, but it's gonna be a little better than those. So I put it like high A tier. Peak Patro Song is gonna be defense, which is not the best thing, and then the passive is not the greatest thing too. You can get some elemental damage if you normal attack, which is going to be low and comfortable Durin. So honestly, it might be the first 5-star that I put as C tier. It's definitely not made for Durin at all in mind. Low base stack, defense substat, and then the passive is almost completely useless, so yeah, I put it as C tier. Azure Light, super high base stack, crit rate as a substat, and then a small attack increase. I don't think you're going to be able to make the rest of the passive work with Durin, at least in most times. So it's basically just crit rate and then 24% attack, which is still pretty decent in my opinion with a super high base stack. I put it low S tier. I think it deserves it for sure. And then finally we have his signature weapon, Thame Ardis. It's just gonna be crit rate, which is super good, and then it's gonna increase the damage to your elemental burst, which is basically just a crit damage increase because that's the main source of your damage. It's also gonna increase your attack, and then it's also gonna increase your team's attack, which is gonna be super good. And then when you have the Hexarray effect, that means you need to have another Hexarray character on your party, which which is usually very easy to include in Durin's teams, then the attack you gain is going to be increased by 75%, which is going to be super good. It's going to be a huge amount of attack increase to Durin and also the rest of the party, and that's pretty good. That's definitely going to be his best weapon for sure. So I would put at top of S tier, but honestly the difference is not going to be that huge with the rest of these weapons, because at the end of the day it's not really offering anything special. It's also just simply a stat stick. It's just a crit rate, crit damage, and then some attack, so it's nothing really special. It offers them more like efficiently than other weapons, but I don't think it's like a huge upgrade, especially if you have good 5-star options already, especially with the team restrictions. If you're not using it with another like X-ray character, then in that case honestly I don't think it's worth it at all, especially if you have any other stat sticks, then just use them. But either way, it is still going to be the best weapon. But if you have any other 5-star weapons, most of them are going to be pretty good on Durin, so I wouldn't recommend really going for his weapon specifically. But yeah, that was it with you guys. If you enjoyed it, please don't forget to leave a like, subscribe to the channel. I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.